Have you ever thought of your life to be going a certain way and you just kept experiencing setback after setback? Maybe you thought to yourself, I'm just experiencing nothing but failures. If that's you, listen to this story.
Like everything, even success comes with a price tag, and the price tag that this gentleman was willing to pay may shock you. This is Harlan Sanders. You know him as the Colonel of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Long before the KFC franchise grew to its current $28 billion net worth, Colonel Sanders had a past. Little did we know, Colonel Sanders had some skeletons in his closet. In 1906, Harlan, by the age of 16, falsified his birth date to be able to enlist in the U.S. Army. He served in Cuba for several months and was honorably discharged. Sanders decided to take up law, packed his bags, and moved to Arkansas to practice in the Justice of the Peace courts. His aggressive nature haunted him, and he found himself in a courtroom brawl with a client. Yikes. The American Bar Association states, a lawyer's conduct should conform to the requirements of the law, both in professional service to the clients and in a lawyer's business and professional affairs. A lawyer should use the law's procedures only for legitimate purposes and not to harass or intimidate others. This led to losing his license to practice law and derailed his career. As a young man, probably after his military discharge, he worked as a farmhand and a streetcar conductor. Eventually, he worked railroad companies across the South. In 1930, Harlan, by the age of 40, started his own business in a Shell oil gas station.
All right, y'all, here's where things start to get very interesting. So Harlan is running a pretty successful business, serving up country ham and steak dinners to truck drivers, right? Now, as a marketing tactic, Harlan is painting signs on billboards for miles advertising his business. His rival, Matt Stewart, starts painting over the signs. Here's where Harlan, Sir Colonel of Kentucky Fried Chicken, takes it to the streets.
Harlan rushed to the scene with two Shell executives. Matt Stewart shot and killed District Manager Robert Gibson. Harlan returned fire and shot Matt in the shoulder. Matt Stewart was sentenced to 18 years in prison, but Sanders, his charges were dropped after his arrest. In 1935, Kentucky Governor Reuben Laffoon issued a ceremonial decree that commissioned Sanders as honorary colonel. He attempted to look the part and wore a white suit to hide flour stains from his restaurant. He even dyed his hair and goatee to make himself look older, as a colonel should. In 1952, Harlan's Fried Chicken First became a fast food hit in Salt Lake City, Utah. Pete Harmon, Sanders' friend, operated one of the city's largest restaurants and became the colonel's first franchise. In 1955, he was 65 years old at this time. He was fully reliant on a $105 a month Social Security check when he incorporated KFC. He drove a 1946 Ford around the country, signing up new franchises. In 1964, Sanders sold KFC. In 1971, Cuban purchased the company and the recipe changed for the worse. To the Colonel's demise, he opened the Colonel Ladies Diner House in order to compete with what used to be his restaurant. Cuban threatened to block Sanders' plan, and Sanders sued him for $122 million. They settled it in court. Sanders received $1 million and a chance to give a cooking lesson to Hueblin's executives in exchange for his promise to stop criticizing KFC's food.
When you think about success, Harlan is not your stereotypical road or journey to that success. He had a lot of setbacks and probably would have been perceived as career failures. I bet if you asked him when he was working law if he would ever work the fast food industry, you might get a laugh out of him. From the beginning, we learn that Harlan is a good old boy. He joins the military at age 16, gets honorably discharged, and tries his hand at law, but his aggressive nature gets the better of him. After losing his license, he decides to go into railroad, working odd jobs, trying to make ends meet until he gets into business. Then gets into more legal involvement and was arrested for shooting a man. With his charges dropped, he was commissioned as colonel. And to play the part, he changes his look, dyes his hair, his goatee, puts on a white suit to hide the flour stains from his restaurant. He sells his first franchise and travels the country to establish more franchises. He sells his business in 1964, and in 1971, Harlan returns to court, only this time for a lawsuit against Hublin for messing up his recipe. Oh boy, wins the lawsuit, gains $1 million, and the chance to teach Hublin's executives how to get the recipe correct. Pretty cool win if you ask me. Or was he just lucky? So a couple of things that I've learned from Harlan Sanders, aka Colonel of Kentucky Fried Chicken, is number one, even if you plan your life to go a certain way, life can take a turn. Number two, the things that you look down on might be the things that could bring you success. You just never know. And lastly, number three, unresolved emotions from your past can potentially mess up your future. Hey, if there was anything else that you learned from Colonel Sanders' story, be sure to drop that in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. This is for the intro to introduce myself. And I never really thought